Ask Rafah, where your problems are answered. Today I've got a letter here in front of me from a guy called James, who's written to me, obsessed apparently by his 60-year-old lover. And he has written, "A few months ago I bumped into a former neighbour, a glamorous woman now in her 60s, who I hadn't seen for 30 years. I recognised her instantly, and she has been my first crush and a subject to many schoolboy fantasies. She still looks amazing, and we chatted for ages, and she has said that she might not be able to, or she was able to help me with my business, and we exchanged email addresses. We sent a few messages, and then she invited me around, apparently for me to be helped with my business. But instead, when I got there, it became apparently clear that she had other intentions. And even though I was asking myself, what the hell am I doing? I'm 48 years old and married with a family. I didn't resist her advances, and we ended up in her bedroom having sex. It was incredible. The sex was nothing like I had ever encountered before, and she gently laughed at me for being so shy. After that, I took every opportunity to visit her, and the sex has been increasingly passionate, and I realise I have lived quite a sheltered life. But now, of course, I can't see her at all, and it's agony." Now, James has clearly written this to me during the lockdown and has been unable to clearly visit his lover. And I am absolutely certain as well what the lockdown has done for many people has brought a lot of issues up to do with their relationships. So anybody who has been having an affair would have found that they've not been able to continue the affair during the lockdown. Anybody who actually has been cheating on their partner would have had to be faced with actually living and coexisting with a partner, and possibly facing the truth of the relationship, either that it's not going to actually work, or it is something that they've decided to work on, or has made the gap more apparently clear, or whatever the situation could be. But we'll just concentrate on what's happened here with James. Now, clearly, first thing I want to say, James, is the fact that you are absolutely enamoured by the fact they've had really good sex, and something they've not clearly had with your wife, or you feel that it's been very sheltered or quite limited. One thing you don't actually mention on either about the either women is that your feelings for them. Okay, so I'm quite worried about really where your intentions are at the moment. I think that your dick is actually leading the situation, and you're very much obsessed, as in your own words, with your older lover. And what can happen is, of course, when you feel very lustful or when you get sexually aroused to the point that you've not actually experienced before, or when it's been sort of opened up, your sexual energy has been kind of heightened, you're bound to feel all these sort of sexual desires much, much strongly. One of the reasons I think that we've also lost all sense of decorum around is when people have sex too early, or just animalistic sex. What it does is actually you get sort of you get the energy field of a sexual exchange, but that is not actually based on any foundation of any friendship or any kind of solid ground. My concern here is that this is very much a very projected fantasy, as you've said, that since you had in your as a schoolboy. Not to say, of course, that you've been fantasizing her, but what it's done is it's reignited, and you're incredibly chuffed, clearly, that you're now engaging in engaged in this sexual relations with this woman. Okay, but like I said, you don't actually mention any love or any particular care for her. It is all very much about your sexual desire and wanting to reconnect on that level, which worries me very much. Now, I just personally feel that this actually, what you need to really think about is more with your head, and particularly with your heart. You've got to remember that you're actually a family man, and you've been married. Okay, you don't say how long you've been married, but you have children. So it actually can also really destroy already what you've built and cultivated on. Perhaps maybe what this situation has done for you is maybe awaken to the fact that yes, your sexual relationship with your wife has gotten stale, or rather very bland, or just very ordinary in comparison to what you've had with your lover. But perhaps that you can actually maybe reignite that kind of sexual advances with your wife, or perhaps maybe sort of take your sexual relations with your wife on another level. But of course, in order for that to happen, you're going to have to terminate the sexual relationship with your lover. Now, it's not really for me to tell you what to do, but you did write in sort of saying that you are absolutely confused because you're not quite sure what to do. Now, what I can advise you is to really seriously sit down and really think about the pros and cons that each of the women have given you, or are giving you, or has given you to date. Okay, I can bet you bottom dollar right now that the lover has only given you a real sexual connection, which is very strong clearly, but you need to weigh it up against what you already have and what you may lose. The other thing is you don't actually, you need to question really what your feelings are towards your marriage. Okay, now again, your letter was very directed about this sort of love affair you've had. You've not really given me any backstory about what your relationship as a married man with your wife has been, or your family. I do recommend that you do some counseling or take some therapy, or actually have some relationship coaching with me, which you can, or go and see a counselor or a sexual therapist, both with your wife, and maybe see what you can actually work through. Now, what you decide to do is really up to you, but I would really recommend that you think very seriously as to what you really desire at this point. Okay, now I know at the same time the contradiction here is that you clearly desire your sexual lover, all right? But I mean, you need to really think about what an obsession is never healthy. And the other thing I also want to point out, that you've got to remember that she's a lot older than you, which is not really an issue for me, but you know, she's 60 and you're 48, so there's a 12-year gap. Now the other thing is she's clearly taken an interest in you, and she's sort of being a cougar woman, but she's capable of doing that completely out of the blue, disrespecting the fact that you're actually married. I would really seriously think that she has absolutely no concern or care for you as to what happens to your marriage, because after all, you're the responsible person that has to take responsibility for yourself, although she instigated it. But also, more importantly, that she could actually have an affair or actually decide to drop you and go for somebody just as young or younger even, if she is as gorgeous as you say that she is. So I would really recommend that you really sit and think and really take heart in what the situation has brought up for you. And I'm just going to quickly sort of go through the chakras here right now on the screen, which I will be screen sharing, or rather it's screen recording. So I have a drawing here that is a figure of a man and a woman. Okay, what happens in any kind of engagement that we have with anybody, and if you look at any of my other previous Ask Rafah videos, I do talk about it at length, and I try to keep it also as brief as possible, because the chakras are a very basic but complex system within the body. Okay, it's an energy system that is stacked in the central core of the body, and each chakra correlates to different energy and archetypal facets to do with our emotional life, to do with the physical life, and to do with our sort of spiritual sense of self. Okay, now I am, just for the sake of this letter here, James, this is what I want to highlight. So James, this is where our sexual energy is. This is for everybody. Okay, there's a male aspect and a female. They're roughly round 2 inches or an inch or so down below the navel. The color is orange often, and this is the sexual center. So you would have connected with a 64-year-old lover, or even anybody. Okay, now when it's really heightened and kind of obsessive in your case, this would have been activated, possibly because it was so dormant before, you weren't really kind of getting your energy or your sexual kick, if you like, activated. It has now gone to the other extreme, and you're now obsessing because this part is what has connected and triggered the sexual chemistry between the two of you. All right, now this happens for anybody as well. When you first have sex with somebody, this is why it's really exciting, because you kind of get 2 sparks. You know, these are sort of sparking off. Okay, this is a sacral chakra, or the sexual energy point. All right, it's a sexual center known for all the issues to do with the sexual organs as well. So if you've got any issues with the sexual organs, you're going to have some issues there. Your lower abdomen fall into this area. Okay, your sciatica, the pelvic floor muscles, the lower back, any issue to do with any of this physical stuff often happens from the second chakra. Okay, but what's really interesting here for you is that you've lost control now, which also informs me that your sacral chakra is out of whack. Okay, there's a sense of abandonment, a sense of guilt, towards your partner's very sacral chakra as well. Blame, you might be blaming your wife maybe for not having actually, sort of her being a bit more restrained. You've taken a risk, but not a very honorable one. And you are actually dishonored the relationship, and you've made a decision that's really kind of affected the integrity. So your sacral chakra, and for anybody watching, is really the key need for a major tune-up. All right, so that's your sacral chakra. The other chakra also where you've sort of given your power away, which is now where you've lost your power, is through your solar plexus. Okay, the solar plexus is the central one. This is where we own a power, a home of choice. Now, there is sometimes an overlap as well. Okay, and then the root chakra, which I'm not going to discuss, is actually down here, right in the perineum, and this is more sort of around the hip area. Okay, now the other chakra now, which is compromised, is your sense of power. All right, you've made a dishonorable decision. You're carrying that guilt as well, which is also very related to the sacral chakra. And also you have made a choice that has affected your sense of self and created a crisis for you. Okay, it's going to now eat at your confidence and a sense of reliance towards your marriage, as with the lover that you're having. I don't think people realize the knock-on effect it has. You might sort of think this is okay, and you're so overtaken by the lust and the desire to have somebody, which is also very natural kind of animal instinct. But you have to understand that you've actually breached another boundary, which brings me to the fact that this is actually the point of where your boundaries are. Now, you've actually breached your boundary. You've taken your vow or your marriage and you've broken that, and you've actually moved towards somebody else. So you've already breached a boundary of yourself and your integrity. So I would say that your solar plexus could do with a tune-up. Now, working with these chakras as well will also help you to be able to strengthen this from the inside out, which means you would be able to make a decision that would be much more integral to your truth, to the value of yourself. I'm not saying that you leaving your marriage for this other woman is the right or the wrong thing to do. All I'm sort of saying is the fact that you need to make a decision that's absolutely integral to your truth. Okay, right now I personally feel that you're actually being overtaken and overshadowed by a sense of sexual attraction, raw primal sexual desire, and it's turned into an obsession, which is also very unhealthy. Any obsession or addiction is unhealthy. Now I'm going to take it very quickly up to the heart chakra. I don't really want to spend too much time on this. Okay, I do have a meditation which I will post up on the box here on the right, which will actually inform you of a good meditation to help you strengthen these chakras as well, and to break the cords of any unrequited love, or in this kind of situation where you're actually having an affair with somebody and you know that you've got to quit the obsession, and this will also help to break the cord, because what happens is these attachments start growing. Okay, so what's happened is, so although you're living kind of here and she's over there, this is still very activated, okay, and particularly around your head, where there's a lot of thinking and a lot of obsession, okay, which is also then triggering all these chakras to be kind of sparked up. All right, now we need to kind of be able to sort of get a handle of it and really clear out, and you need to get back to the truth of who you are, what your relationship stands for, certainly what your marriage stands for. Okay, now the other thing I might bring in here is your throat chakra, because you are going to have to be able to speak your truth to your wife at some point. Now at this point I would maybe not speak to her necessarily for you to you will have to tell her at some point, because at some point you're going to be living a lie. All right, so I don't know how relationships can exist on lies, and some people lie for a lifetime, but they carry that with them, and that's a lot of a massive energetic sort of debris or energy leak that you exist in. You will have to actually, but you're telling her you could be breaking the marriage down, full stop. I think you've already taken the first step into a destruction. But I would say that there's some kind of communication, and certainly an honest communication you need to have yourself, because this is also the chakra of integrity. All right, you need to really kind of, it's also the chakra of addiction, which is where your obsession is coming from. You know, you've lost your personal power here completely because you're not even thinking straight. It's all down here. So I really suggest that you actually get some willpower back through these chakras and actually reforge a relationship that will help you heal with yourself first and foremost, and more importantly, because you can't take away what's happened, that's for sure. So I think the damage is already done. I'm going to leave the chakras here because actually it's quite a hard one really for me to sort of be able to express, but I really do think that you do need to check that video out that I recommended. That will really help to strengthen, detach from the cords, strengthen your sacral chakra. That particular one hasn't got the solar plexus, but you can think about that's where you've betrayed yourself and your boundary. I will definitely mend your heart. You would need to really come from a heart place. Depending on where your wife is with you on and how she'll take this betrayal, I really couldn't tell you. That I'm going to leave you to make that decision, whether you should tell her or not. I think the damage has you've already stepped and overmarked the situation. But what I did do was I pulled some tarot. As some of you know that I do tarot cards here as well. I pulled a tarot card and the very interestingly, yep, okay. Well, okay, the first thing I'm just going to say to you, James, this is, the deed is done. You have betrayed all forms of betrayal. This is a 10 of Swords. All right, I think this is kind of where you're at. I think you know that. I think also you're very much in your head now. I think you've done the ultimate betrayal. I don't think there's anybody can accept the fact that once you betray a relationship, you've betrayed it. It is a very hard place to recourse it. It can be done. It will take a lot of work and a lot of mending and a lot of trust building, but you have done the ultimate thing. And this, to me, this card is when somebody goes too far. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get more swords in the back. This is, to me, in the swords, is the highest form, or the kind of the darkest card there is. But actually you have a plethora of them. What's interesting is this is where you are, or this is where you were, okay, feeling all joyous. I bet you were kind of feeling like childlike, you were feeling exuberant and just completely in your own zone. All right, this is a card very much of when you feel really heightened. It's next to this card, so I think what happened is this card popped up when I shuffled it. Okay, it just popped out of the deck as I was sort of streaming my mind into the question, into your problem. So I decided to leave it because I felt that it was actually definitely a good portrayal. So already off the bat, the card has told me it's a bad news, it's a no-go, and something that has died for sure or ended. So either your relationship with your wife is about to end, or, because that wasn't my question, or the relationship with your lover is going to end. But it's definitely caused a very serious offense and destruction. I think you're going to be in a very dark space for a little while, despite the fact that you were actually in this zone for a while and being really happy-go-lucky and as joyous as you wanted to be as a child. All right, what this card tells me now is you need to actually hold, and this is what the lockdown did. Okay, it held the Four of Pentacles. Is very much about a card that means holding on to your emotions, holding back. And if you actually look at the cards, you just really need to get grounded again. Okay, you need to actually really look, make it sort of some kind of inquiry. If you look at the coins, there's one on the top of the head, one in the heart, and there's two laid down. This is actually somebody who's quite miserly, and I really believe that you really need to be miserly now with your thoughts and your emotions here, and take stock. Okay, ground your thoughts. I mean, he's wearing red boots on the coins as well, which I really like to think that these are the thoughts that you need to ground. This is your sort of sense of self. Okay, I feel like you've lost all sense of propriety, your sense of honor. I mean, this is, you know, a figure of a merchant or somebody. Again, you know, you need to just sit down and take stock. And maybe also, I kind of feel, you know, to go and see somebody, actually, somebody with, you know, the wisdom, if you look at the mind, or someone who's able to help you with this sort of complex situation you found yourself, convoluted, and you need to actually have somebody like, definitely an outsider, help you. This could be like a therapist, a counselor, a coach, or somebody who can actually help you through this stagnant, not so much stagnant energy, but you're very stuck. Okay, this is definitely stuck. But what's interesting is, I mean, if you look at these cards, your next card that followed this one is the Devil. Now, the Devil is all about obsessions and addictions and obsessions, sexual obsession. I mean, it just says it. I mean, you feel that you're totally chained to this situation. All right, you're actually totally caught up in this. This could have been a karmic setup for you as well. Okay, the thing with life is we never know really what's right or wrong. It might be so wrong on some level, on the outer level, but on an inner level, you might have actually now need to discover what's really true for you, what's your priorities, what's your values. Okay, because you have breached something, and every problem can be solved, but it may not have the outcome that you want, but definitely everything can be solved. I feel that with you in this case, this is something that you need to release yourself from, because for sure, as in your own words as well, that you're very aware that you're obsessed. Okay, you do need to tame yourself out of this situation. And finally, I decided to get a clarifier, but it didn't actually help, because here we are also the Nine of Swords. So this one's the one below this one, but this is actually you losing sleep over it, getting really worried over it. And this, in your case, is not unwarranted worry. This is very warranted worry. Okay, you've created the saying, you've made your bed, so now you can lie in it, so to speak. Okay, I think you're going to need to get some outside intervention. I feel like you've definitely probably damaged your relationship. You've not given it much thought. You're almost very childlike and very gullible when you went into that situation. And even in your letter, I feel, and it sounds like, you know, you say in your letter that, you know, her intentions weren't all that, here you say it became clear that she had other intentions. I have a feeling that you had an inkling for that, or, you know, something doesn't sit very well with me on this one at all. And I'm sure that you were giving off a lot of flirtatiousness because you couldn't even possibly help yourself. Because of the crush that you had years ago. Now it's interesting, I pulled one more card as well from my chakra deck, which I will look at this, give it a bit more of an extended reading. Okay, so for those who are going to be looking at this further, there'll be this first section and the extended. But what you got, which I thought was brilliant, and I do really love it when the chakras just pop a card out, not a chakra, sorry, a card pops itself out. Now this card, it says facade, but I just feel like looking at the image here, it's like there's an image of a younger kid and an older person, an adult. And I think this is exactly what you've done. You've completely allowed your inner child, your juvenile, crushed, your unintelligent self, the child, you know, project itself. It's almost as if, look, you've kind of like, you know, this figure is taking the hand of the child and walking it along. So you've completely allowed your child self to have what it wants there. And it's a facade. It's completely, you know, if you really looked at this card deeply, I mean, there could be so many things out of here. This could be somebody actually walking away with a child and kidnapping them, or it could be, you know, I mean, it can be a granddad. You know, there's so many facades, but I just think you've really, it's not a facade in terms of like a front, but more like you've deluded, you duped yourself, you know, completely. You know, you've allowed your inner schoolboy crushed self take over your rationale, and you are deeply regretting it now. This is a major regret, and you really can unchain yourself if you actually really look closely to the chains around the neck. I don't know if it's going to do it. There it is. Yeah, if you actually look at the two figures in the foreground, the chains are around the neck, and actually they're not, it's not completely tight around the neck, so technically you can actually take yourself off and out. And I really recommend that you do that. I would like to see what the rest of the cards will say, but for this right now, James, this is all I've got for you. I think you've created some serious problems here, and I think for anybody else, you know, before you dive in and take your pants and decide that sex is what's actually, you know, sort of, you know, think about what you're doing. Think about the damage you're going to be causing, not only for yourself but for everybody concerned. And the chances are there'll be only one innocent party, and that'll be the older woman. When I say innocent, as in she's probably going to be the one person come out unscathed. But you have certainly created now a ripple-on effect. And you know, if you have gotten involved with somebody and monogamy and being together is your vow, then, you know, vows and promises are words of honor, and they need to be honored. And if you've decided not to do that, you just now have to pay the consequences of your actions. So that's all I have to say. Like I said, you seek some relationship counseling of some kind to get to the bottom of why you needed to do that. I just personally really feel that in some way it was your inner child that was actually leading you, actually. I mean, this could be the child, look, they're leading the adult. There you go, you know. And I think you've really faltered very badly. So that's all I've got to say. I wish you best. And I'll put some details of any, might want to go and see Relate or some kind of sexual therapist to be able to work through some of your needs and desires, and maybe how you can actually make that work in your marriage. And I recommend that you actually go and see a counsellor, whether you should actually divulge. Normally I'll be all go for telling your partner the truth. This one I have to sort of say, I am not certain if it's going to serve, but you will be living with the guilt. And actually, in hindsight, if I were to be really honest, since honesty is one of my highest values, I'd say you would have to be honest. Be honest. I mean, that's my value. And then you pay the price for it, but you can actually build the relationship up, even if it breaks both your hearts to start with. Because through that bottom line breakdown, which is really this, all right, you are able to, I mean, you couldn't get any lower than this. So this is almost like the rising out of, from the sort of the pit, if you like. And it may actually resurrect and do your relationship a world of good. Maybe your wife also needs to know that you both need to work on your sexual relations, and both of you have kind of gone along with it. You have, just as much as she has, gone along with a very stale sexual relationship for whatever reason. But now that you know that it could be far more passionate and far more exciting, perhaps you'd like to bring that into your marriage and rekindle your marriage, and that would be my advice to you. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and for the extended card reading that will be up on YouTube in a couple of days' time, also to inform you maybe what measures you need to take other than the advice I've already given you. Thanks very much. Bye for now. Bye.